Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim York, and I work with the KDE EERP support team. And welcome to our webcast this morning. It's everything you ever wanted to know or maybe didn't want to know about federal reimbursement. I will be your host for today, along with Jackie Chisholm, who works with the District Financial Management Branch. She's going to talk to you about the payment process after you leave EERP. And so let me first introduce you to our EERP team. We have Kristen Lambert, who will be with us today. She's there as well. She's going to be answering any questions that you have as we go along with the presentation. Of course, we'll have a proper question and answer session at the very end. Myself and Kathy Pelletier, who is our Tyler Technologies vendor partner. You'll see our EERP email address at the top. That email address goes to our entire team. So if you ever have any questions about federal reimbursement or any other state report, please use that email address. And I do have a link to the KDE SharePoint site that is an amazing site. You need to go out and bookmark lots of relevant information you'll see there. So a little housekeeping, you have your Q&A icon at the top of the screen. That's what you'll use if you have any questions throughout. Again, Kristen will be manning the box for that. And at the later today or tomorrow, I will be sending out a formal copy of this presentation along with the archived webinar. Again, it'll be later today or tomorrow. I wait and send the presentation out with the webinar just because if I get questions through this process, I may want to update that presentation and I want what information comes to you to be the most effective and efficient. So you will get a copy of the presentation along with the webinar. So just an overview. So after about what federal reimbursement really is. So after your final payroll for the month is complete, you'll complete a federal reimbursement report. It's generated through the Kentucky Employee Benefits Program. All those directions are in our EERP processing guide for Kentucky Employee Benefits. And that link to the Munis site where you'll see that will be in the presentation when you receive it. Your report should be completed within 30 days following the month that you're actually reporting. The example here is if you're processing your March 2026 federal reimbursement, you need to have it to KDE by April 30th, 2026. That is a pretty stringent guideline, but if it's late, it's a report you're sending to KDE and not the federal government. So, but our guidelines are that you do send that within 30 days. So once the report is generated, you'll have a federal Excel report that is accessible in Kentucky Employee Benefits under Maintain. You're going to see about everything that you'll need to do with manipulation of this report is under the Maintain tab. The federal Excel report will show the total amount required to be paid. And since you make that payment electronically, a journal entry is entered to post the payment in EERP. So our EERP section of this presentation, we're going to cover what federal reimbursement is and why, a basic discussion of the process itself and how to generate the report, and then submitting the all dreaded summer federal reimbursement files. I know that can be confusing. I've tried to add some graphics and things to hopefully make that a little bit easier for you to understand, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. So federal reimbursement. Why are you doing it in the first place? So districts reimburse KDE for the employer portion of health insurance, life insurance, and HRA costs, and the administrative fee paid on behalf of school district employees whose salaries are paid or partially paid from federal funds. Only base pay is considered for classified employees. Base and extended days are used to calculate for certified employees. Extra earnings are not considered. And as you see here, supplemental earnings for classified are typically 0131 and 0132. Supplemental for certified are 0012, 13, and 14. So none of those are considered when it comes to federal reimbursement. So this is simply your pathway to the Kentucky Employee Benefits Program. And once you get to the program, these are the choices that you'll have, and you have the option for federal reimbursement, as you see right here. Let me get my highlighter, this right here that's highlighted. In that, you're going to actually, that's your define screen that you see there, you're going to want to put the billing year, which is the calendar year, the billing month, the month for the file, the payroll date range that you have, and any excluded payrolls that you might have. So you'll select execute and then yes, that you're ready to generate your reimbursement. The execute process overrides any previously generated records for a specified month or year. So you can run this 1,000 times. If you've made any manual changes in your federal reimbursement records, it will overwrite those. So you would need to re-update those if you made any manual changes. But you can run your federal reimbursement report as many times as you need to get it right. So maintain is the brain. So and this is just an example of what that report looks like. It's simply an Excel report. It can be, changed if you need to change any information within that. And this is the report that you typically would be sending to Jackie Chisholm. So you'll select GL Post from the Federal Reimbursements ribbon. The GL Post step must be performed in order for the reimbursement amounts to post to the appropriate general ledger account codes. And something I like to remind people of here is that if you have one of the fields that's above, most of the cases that I see this in, let me back up, or when you've gone back and you've changed someone's payroll history, you've changed it from federal funds to general fund or general fund to federal. Sometimes those amounts can be quite large. And if it's above $9,999.99, it will eventually post. It can take hours. I've seen it take hours for the bigger districts for that to post, but it will eventually post. Just let it be posted and go do something else and come back to it. This is a known issue. It has been reported to Tyler. They've been working on it for quite some time. We still have not got that resolved, but do know that it will eventually post. Just give it time to do so. So if no errors are received, you can select yes and in the post updates dialog box. And this will then create a journal with source code PRK. So a journal entry is made after the payment has been made. And this is just showing you an example of what a debit and credit entry may be afterwards. Your district may use a different code, but this is typically what the code is. And the bottom, you're going to see that if you go through this process and it's not recognizing one of your GL codes and you need to change that, you can use the fix option to update that and use the correct GL code. So now we're going to talk about the summer months. And this is where everything gets a little bit tricky. But employees employed less than 12 months typically receive multiple paychecks during June. I've had the occasional district say they actually process this in May instead of June. These can vary slightly between districts. This is the typical district that pays twice a month. Is a scenario that we're going to be using. If you're a district that pays once a month, you'll see how we can variate that. But this process is going to be utilizing the typical district of being paid twice a month. So it says employees employed less than 12 months typically receive multiple paychecks during June. The deductions taken in these payrolls for health, life cover premiums for June, July, and August, possibly August. Again, that's another thing that varies. Some districts only do June and July. Some do June, July, and August, but this scenario is going to use August as well. So during the generate process, warrants can be excluded when generating the federal reimbursement files during summer months, and that's the key. So the note here is that after each successful generate, perform the following steps prior to generating the next June file and GL post. So an example district here pays the first check of the new year on September 15th to teachers, instructional assistants, bus drivers, etc. The pay amount is divided equally within 24 periods and results in 6 checks being processed in June to pay the remainder of the contract and cover premiums for the summer months. So again, this is our typical district that pays twice a month. You should have 2, and we're going to go into detail, 2 normal June checks, 2 Julys paid in June, 2 Augusts paid in June. So let's move forward. So the first one that you're going to be processing is your typical June payroll. So district chooses to pay all summer premiums in June, we'll need to create 3 separate files. The generate screen for June 1, your first payment for federal reimbursement, excludes all payrolls except your normal June payrolls. So you're going to have 6 warrants, all with a payroll date range of June 1 to June 30th, and we have to figure out which federal reimbursement payment is for which. And we also have a new naming convention for summer that Jackie will be going to in her session as well. But for the first June normal, this would be all your 12-month for June and your 10-month for June. You're going to exclude any warrants you have set up for July or August. Makes sense, right? That's your June federal reimbursement. And something you want to remember is you need to perform that GL post in between each of these so that it can differentiate which is which. So now we've moved on to our July, your second federal reimbursement payment for the summer. You're going to exclude those June normal paydays, and you're going to exclude August. So that will leave only warrants that are meant to be for your July 10-month payroll. Same thing here for August. We want to only include payrolls warrants that are meant to be for August. So we're going to exclude our June, we're going to exclude our July, and that will leave just warrants that were processed in June that represent your August 10-month employees. So when the 10 or 11-month employees are all paid in June and federal reimbursements files have been created and submitted to KDE, the normal process is followed for July and August. So now you've moved into the month of July, you've paid your 12-month people. So when you run a federal reimbursement dated July 1 to July 31st, it's only going to include people that were paid in July, and that should only be your 12th month. So your July federal reimbursement would be normal. Same for August. When you run August 1st to August 31st, you should only be including those 12-month people on that report. So items to note here is that your district pays 24 checks, the 15th and 30th. We're using that as an example. It could be, I see the 10th and the 25th. It could be any of that. We're using 15th and 30th as an example. Your 10-month staff receive their first check for the new year on August the 30th. So this is where you've got to think. You don't pay a second federal reimbursement premium in August for your 10-month employees. So if you run your August 1st to August 31st and you have your 10-month employees pull up on that, and you've already paid that in June, you want to go to the federal Excel sheet and remove those people. You want to remove their records. You want to move them from that because they will not be paid again in August. You'd be paying twice for these people if you do that. And always review the maintain screen prior to posting. So go to maintain, look at the people that are pulling in for August. If you have anybody in there that is a 10-month and you've already paid that in June, just take them off, delete them. So this is kind of a graphic that I hope will help you understand this a little bit better. So for our June normal payrolls, you have 2 warrants, 2 June warrants, and you have 1 federal reimbursement post and payments because federal reimbursement runs on a month basis. It doesn't run on 2 weeks. If you pay someone 2 weeks and you run federal reimbursement, it's going to take it for a month. It's not going to take it for 2 weeks. Federal reimbursement runs on a month-to-month basis. So in June, you've got 2 warrants that are for your June payroll. You'll have 2 warrants and 1 federal reimbursement post and payment. The same thing for July. You'll have 2 warrants that are for your July 10 month, but only 1 federal reimbursement post and payment. Same thing for August. 2 warrants that represent your August 10 month, 1 federal reimbursement post and payment. And so why are you having to do this? Why do we have to make this so complicated? I guess I would say it's because all of your warrants are dated June 1 to June 30th, because that's when you're running the payrolls for these. If down the line you need to come back and look at any of this, you need to be able to see that you need to be able to look in June, because that's when the payrolls were actually ran. So items to note here is that if an employee transfers from a teaching position to a 12-month administrator's position, they begin work on July 1 and receive a check in July. The employee will generate into a normal July file, that typical 12-month employee file, if his or her earnings are federal. So you'll want to remove that person, right? You've already paid federal reimbursement for them, and they've started a new position that is a 12-month position starting July 1. They pull into that July federal reimbursement. You simply want to remove them. And as it says, remove this employee's federal reimbursement record in the maintain screen prior to performing the GL post. So districts choose not to pay July and August federal reimbursement in June. And we see this, a lot of the bigger districts, it's a lot of money to come up with in your budget to pay in June. So you follow the same process, but your date ranges are going to be extending. So the first one, June regular, June 1 to June 30th, you'll exclude those July and August 10-month warrants only. July 10 month, this is where you start extending your payroll date range. So you want to include June 1st through July 31st, and then exclude any June regular or your August 10 month. And then in August, you want to extend that date, June 1, 2026 to August 31st, 2026. You'll need to exclude both the June regular warrants and all July warrants. And that will leave you with what you have for August. And that will allow you to pay those payments in the months that they're actually for, June, July, and August. So now I am actually turning this over to Jackie Chisholm. I'm going to be advancing the slides for her. So Jackie, just let me know when you need for me to advance them.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. I'm Jackie Chisholm, and I'm with the District Financial Management Branch. And years ago, I want to say about 2 years ago, we switched over to a new platform, which is SharePoint, in order to upload your file. It's really important that you upload a SharePoint file, which is the Excel file that Kim was speaking about earlier. And you need to upload it through SharePoint in order for us to look at that file and then compare it to what you actually made the payment for through the state to make sure they reconcile and balance. And if you're not on the SharePoint side, you're a very new finance officer or personnel who's actually submitting the payments, you need to go to finance reports at education.ky.gov, this link below, and ask us to make you a user for this process. And it literally takes just a few minutes, and then our IT department goes ahead and uploads your name to that site. And as Kim mentioned before, that the federal reimbursement files and payments are to be submitted to KDE within 30 days of the last payroll date. So if you're making a payment for March, they're due to KDE by the end of April. But like I said, the SharePoint site, we switched to SharePoint about 2 years ago. We were on another platform, and that platform was kind of aging, so we decided, hey, let's do SharePoint. So if you're brand new to the system, like I said, you'll be using SharePoint. And if you've been around for quite a while, you're probably familiar with that old site, but that's no longer up and running. So we do use SharePoint to submit the file upload. Okay, next screen. Submitting the federal reimbursement Excel file. To access the submission site, use the link noted below, and that'll get you directly to the SharePoint site in order to upload your Excel spreadsheet Kim was discussing earlier that you've created and maintained. Okay, next screen. Okay, and the file submission page, once you get on it, should look like what it looks like below, where it says, Welcome to Kentucky Department of Education. And then to the right, you'll click on the file that you would like to upload. And you just click on that and hit upload. Okay, next screen. Again, you hit the upload button, and if you notice at the screen below, if it's an incorrect format appears on the screen, open the file and confirm that it is a correct format. If the format is correct, but it doesn't upload, contact me because there's probably a glitch in the system and I'll have to get with the appropriate IT personnel to correct that situation. Okay? Next one. Please note the file format process, we've been discussing this and it's going to change. And I put on here April 1st, but you can do it your next payment if you'd like. If you're used to the file format currently, it's really a little bit cumbersome. There's so many numbers and digits and so forth. So we thought about it. We're just like, hey, let's make something a little bit simpler. So we come up with this. XXX represents your district or co-op's 3-digit number. So you want to list that first for your format, and then with the little hyphen, and you put the month that you're paying. So if you're paying April, it's 04, and then the year, which would be 26. The reason why I've got org behind there and REV is because list org for your original file. So if you're submitting something, like I said, for April and it's your original file, just put that format in there, your digit 0426, and then put org. However, if you contact us and say, hey, I've got to revise the file because an employee was left off the payroll, the Excel spreadsheet that I created, you're going to want to hit a new upload, I should say, upload a new file, and then just put REV behind that. And that will go ahead and show us that you did upload a revised file, and we'll use that for comparison. And when saving the file, and to prevent files from being overwritten, this is really important, you must save the file with the filing naming, which I just showed above, because a lot of times if you go in and you hit something different, you want to save it, it'll override something. So you want to make sure you got that file format correct. Okay, next slide. Naming process for the summer federal reimbursement files. Kim alluded to this earlier in the screens. And a file naming format, again, is going to be used to assist, it's going to help clarify the summer federal reimbursement payments. And what we came up with is what's shown below. You rename the file addressing, adding an extension to identify it. So, for example, REG behind that file format I just showed you will show regular file format. Sum, and then if you want to do the July payment, you put SUM and then put a hyphen for July. Same thing for August. Noting again that XXS is your district number. This is really important for us because what's going to happen is once you upload that file and we compare it to what the payment is, we're going to see that that particular payment is the July summer payment, that portion of the large payment that you made. And it'll kind of help us reconcile so we don't have to go back to you and say, hey, which payment is this for? What month is this for? It helps for clarification purposes. So like I said, with the summer months, it's a little bit different, just adding the REG or the SUM. Okay, next slide. Okay, procedure requirements. This is very important. Do not submit any spreadsheets that contain employee social security numbers, because if it is, we're just going to email you and just say, hey, we're going to take this off of the SharePoint site and you're going to have to reload it. It's for personal privacy information. So those note need to be submitted. I think nowadays, it happened a long time ago where the social security numbers were being put through, and for privacy purposes, it's good not to have all those social security numbers on your file uploads. So in in exchange, you can actually put their employee number, which all of you have been doing is actually for the last quite a few months you've been doing the correct way. So we just don't want to see social security numbers. So below is just an example of a district that shows the employee, and under that employee, they'll have like the employee ID number and then their name, the billing year, billing month, the list the fiscal year and fiscal month. That kind of really helps us out, and as well as you guys, to show that this is, what they're being paid for this particular month and so forth. Okay, next slide. Okay, the payment procedures. Once a federal payment is paid by the electronic funds transfer, so after you create the file, you're going to submit your payment through the electronic funds transfer, the EFT, and this process is a secure website that's handled by the Finance Controller's Office, which FCO. And to access the ACH application, all new users will need to get registered. And you can go to the link right below where it says registration link to get registered. And I always suggest that you follow the steps to create a username, password, and answer the personal security questions. That'll help to maintain your eligibility in the system. And it's a good recommendation to do a primary user for this ACH payment. And then if you want, I say you want, but it is a good idea to have two backups because you never can tell if you're going to be gone on vacation or you're out for considerable amount of time. You have someone that can actually get onto that site and make their payment. And every user should use their own login credentials just for, again, privacy purposes. So the registration link is noted below. And then once successfully registered, you have to be granted access to actually submit the payment. And the only way you're going to be granted access is you have to email Bethany Crockett at the controller's office, which her email link is noted below. And then the payment should be made at the following link. That link, sometimes you'll notice, I've had a few finance officers let me know that, because this is on our website as well, that the link doesn't work. Sometimes the link that we have, KDE's link, doesn't correspond or doesn't play well with the controller's office link. So we have a little bit of hiccups there. So if it's not working, please let me know and I will reach out to either Bethany, because they may have changed their link, and get the correct link out there. And if you need to make a change to your customer setup, like you're adding another person that's going to be making the ACH payments versus yourself, you just need to go to that website or the link right below KentuckyGov.ACH pay request, and they will go ahead and get that person registered. And if you have any questions on this federal reimbursement process for District Financial Management Branch, I always refer you to the website as well, which is located right below. That kind of takes you through everything we just talked about and has links to our standard operating procedures and so forth. One thing I will note before we leave this screen is because we changed the file format just recently here, it's not on our standard operating procedures, which you can find on the website. I will get those changed as soon as possible and get those out on the website. But for now, just keep this PowerPoint presentation handy, and you can kind of go back to that and notice how the format should look for the file uploads. Okay, next screen. This is just kind of like an overview of what KDE does when they go to look at the federal reimbursement payments. And since they're generally paid, usually districts will pay at the end of the month. Each district will make their federal reimbursement payment. Some districts might be a little bit different and pay ahead of time. But again, I'll kind of note it again, we begin the review 30 days after the due date. So it's important that if you get that in, because what we're going to do is we're going to have an EFA, which is our educational financial analysts of the group, take a look at these every month and 30 days after the due date, and they're going to be required to compare the federal reimbursement file upload in SharePoint to the NIC payment engine, which is basically the state's platform that you use to upload your payment to your ACH payment. So they provide us access to that, and so we can compare that payment to what the file upload is. And our job is to look at both the payment uploaded and the file uploaded to make sure they match. If they don't, if there's a discrepancy, then the EFA will go ahead and contact the district and say, hey, this payment was made for this amount, yet your file upload only shows this amount. And then that way you can look at it and say, oh, we forgot to add this employee, or that payment's incorrect because of another reason, and you can kind of get it corrected. If you need to, again, you can upload your file and put that REV for revised on the file upload. So that'll indicate that it is a revision and that we need to look at that file. If there are Another thing I want to kind of point out that some districts will go ahead and they'll save their federal reimbursements, or they not really save, but they won't have time to make them that month. So they'll go ahead and make one payment for, like, say, 3 months. And so you'll have this huge lump sum payment made in the NIC system, the payment engine. And so we'll look at that payment and then look at your file and say, oh my gosh, the file's only this amount when the payment is this huge amount. So that's when we go back to you and say, hey, there's a huge discrepancy. And then you'll note, oh, it's because 3 payments were made. So if we can reconcile those payments correctly with your file upload, it's very handy to have those files pretty accurate that are uploaded in our SharePoint site, so we can see that's exactly what you did. And if it's made after the due date, if you haven't made a payment within the 30 days, then our staff will go ahead and get a hold of you to say, hey, we haven't seen a payment, it hasn't come through, so can you let us know if that payment was made and just the file upload wasn't made, or if the payment wasn't loaded, when is it going to be uploaded, so we can make sure you're not on our delinquent status list. Because if you're on the delinquent status list for too long, then we have to, go a little bit higher and talk to everybody and say, hey, we really need to get this paid, because it's these grant monies that are going, and you're reimbursing KDE for these grant monies once they're paid. So that's why the importance of getting these in as soon as possible is best. Okay, next screen. This is my last screen, but I just kind of wanted to go over our contact information. You can contact myself, and now Kelly Young and Ty Monroe from our group they're looking at the federal reimbursement payment issues every month, just to make sure that the payments are reconciling with the file uploads. So we've got our contact information on this screen. And then I've also included a link below. That link takes you through everything, and it also provides the SOPs and other information that you'll need, for federal reimbursement. So if you can't find something on that link and have further questions, please don't hesitate to contact one of us, and we can help you out. So back to you, Kim.
Jackie. Something I'll add here too, that I meant to emphasize earlier is you're paying back KDE for that employer portion that they have already paid for everyone. You're not paying back federal government. So I've had districts that have kind of gone into a little bit of a panic if they're past that 30-day window of getting their payment entered, thinking that they're doing something against the federal government instead of against KDE. As long as Jackie and her team are aware that there's an issue you're trying to get straightened out, if that needs to be extended, of course it certainly can. We would want the proper payment to be sent in to KDE over an incorrect payment. But just be sure that if it's going to be past the 30 days, that Jackie knows, so that you don't get on that delinquent list, or at least they know why you're on the delinquent list. So that'll help. And so now we're kind of up to any questions. I know that this is a really intimidating process, especially for the summer. The month to month is not bad, but the summer months can be. But if you have any questions and want to ask them now, feel free to do so.
Hey, Kim.
Yes.
Looking here at the moderating the Q&A, and it's something we may need to correct. I'm not really sure, but if we go back to the slides talking about the naming conventions, Christina pointed out that one slide shows the month and year, but then the slide talking about naming the summer files is listed as year then month. So
I think that was intentional. For the summer slides, Jackie, I would need you to chime in on that. Was that intentional?
No, it wasn't intentional. I think it's because we just made these changes, so I apologize for that. Yeah, I apologize. That will be
I
corrected.
said we'll review it all and make sure it's corrected in the communication that we send
Sure.
out. So it was really
Right.
something that we just talked about.
Good catch,
Yeah,
though.
very
Yeah,
quickly.
and another reason why I don't send this presentation out till after it's over, because when we have to make these changes, then what comes to you is the most accurate. So we will get that. I assumed it was intentional. Sorry, Jackie.
No, it wasn't. Like I said, I
we'll
missed
get
it on
that.
that screen, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, we'll get it changed, because like I said, this format, it used to be so, like I said, lengthy. And so we thought, well, Kim, you came up with a great idea of let's just change this to, it's a quicker format. It's a lot shorter, and it's going to work, I think, a little bit better for everybody involved.
Makes it
So,
easy for
So,
sorting the files, whatever.
so we
exactly.
will go,
Mhm.
so this will be the format then. It will be the
Right.
XXS, but you will be adding. So will the Oregon Rev still be there for the summer? Will that be summer? Jackie, just we'll change this and update it, but just as a question. Will we do summer after that and then July with the
Yes,
original?
summer after,
Okay.
yes, exactly. Summer
We'll get
after
that
that in
updated.
July. Yeah, it just makes more sense because that way districts can keep track of it also, you know, hey, I'm doing this original, and this is for the summer. So it's still not as lengthy as the previous format. So, but yeah, I'll get that changed. So I apologize.
And one of the questions was, will they have the slide deck? And yes, always after any of the webinars that we do, we always supply a link to the recorded webinar that's hosted on the KDE Media Portal. You can go back and look at any of our past webinars. They're posted there. And we'll also send a copy of the updated slide deck that's been corrected. And those are all the questions that we had.
Oh, can I add one
So
more thing? I'm sorry. There's been some districts where sometimes you'll have to, an employee was missing from a particular month, and the basically the ACH has already gone through to the state. So I always tell them, if you need to add on, just add on to, you know, the next month, and it's noted in an email. So we retain that email so we know what's going on. So if the payment is actually higher than next month, because of the addition of that employee or employees, we know why. So I just kind of want to point that out, that that's okay, because a lot of times it's done after the payment's been made and they're like, oh my gosh, the payment's already been made, and you know, we can't do anything about it. So you just add it on to the next month. I always tell districts. So
Yeah, the corrections for your federal reimbursement
corrections.
typically found
Right.
out after the you've already submitted. So you just
Right.
go into maintain for the next month, add that person or update that person for whatever's correct, and then those two reports will match the
Right.
payments ultimately. So
Right. And we have a paper trail, especially when you email us. So, you know, we can go back and say, oh, yes, you know, this county, Adair County had to do this. So we'll note it in our files. So it's not, you know, we see this discrepancy and not know what it is. So
Adair County is always an example. Sorry, Adair County, you're first
I,
on the list.
I know
Adair.
it's the A. So
Uh-huh.
and if you have any questions that you don't want to ask here, again, you see our EERP team box email here on the final slide. Feel free to reach out to us at any questions that you have when you're going into this process. You know, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help. So if no other questions, I guess we'll end this, Kristen and Jackie.
Great job. Thanks,
Good.
y'all.
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.